Ready, Prabhu? Oh, I think it's working now. Jayo Ra. Is this working? Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Jai Gopi Jana Vallabha Girvaradhari. Jai Gopi Jana Vallabha Girvaradhari. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yamunatira Vanechari. Yamunatira Vanechari. Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Jayo Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vashadi Gaur Bhaktivedanta. Jayo Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vashadi Gaur Bhaktivedanta. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Jayo Prabhupada, Jayo Prabhupada, Jayo Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada. Jayo Jayo Prabhupada, 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 Jayo Jayo Prabhupada. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramaham Saparivar Jagacharya Stotra Satashi Srimati His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Śrīla Prabhupada ki, Shri Shri Gaura Nityai ki Jai, Shri Shri Radha Vallabh ki Jai, Shri Shri Jagannath Baladev Subramai ki, Ananta Koti Vaishnavarind ki, Nitya Gaur Premanande. Oh, this is coming in the front now. Okay, sorry. This is okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Today we are reading from Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, Canto 5, Chapter number 19, Text number 20. 5.19.20. And the title of the chapter is The Island of Jambudvipa. Text number 20. I'm just going to read the text, okay? I can't do this meta. Yo so bhagavati sarva bhutanmi anantamai nirukte nilayane parmatmani vasudeva anya nimitta bhakti yoga lakshano nanagati nimitta vidya grahanti randhana dvarena yada hi mahapurusha prasanga. Purusha prasanga. Word to word translation. Yeah, anyone who asau. Sorry. Yeah, anyone who asau that Bhagavati onto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sarvabhuta Atmani, the super soul of all living entities. Anatmai, having no attachment. Anirukte, who is beyond the mind and speech. Anilayane, not dependent on anything else. Parama Atmani, on to the Supreme Soul. Vasudeva, Lord Vasudeva, the son of Vasudeva. Ananya, without any other. Nimitta, cause. Bhakti Yoga Lakshana, having symptoms of pure devotional service. Nanagati, of varied destinations. Nimitta, the cause. Avidya Granthi, the bondage of ignorance. Randhana, of cutting. Dvarena, by means. Yada, when. He, indeed. Mahapurusha, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purusha, with the devotee. Prasangaha, an intimate relationship. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace I.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Śrīmad Bhāgavatam ki. After many births, when the results of one's pious activities mature, one gets an opportunity to associate with pure devotees. Then one is able to cut the knot of bondage to ignorance, which bound him because of varied fruitive activities. As a result of associating with devotees, one gradually renders service to Lord Vasudeva, who is transcendental, free from attachment to the material world, beyond the mind and words, and independent of everything else. That Bhakti Yoga, devotional service to Lord Vasudeva, is the real path of liberation. It is the real path of liberation. Prabhupada writes, Brahman realization is the beginning of liberation, and Paramatma realization is still further advancements towards the realm of liberation. But one achieves a real liberation when he understands his position as an eternal servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Muktir hit vanyatha rupam swarupena vyavastiti. In the material world, in the bodily concept of life, everyone is working in the wrong direction. When one becomes Brahma bhuta, spiritually realized, one understands that he is not the body and that working in the bodily concept of life is useless and misdirected. Then his devotional service begins, as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 18, text number 54, Brahma bhuta prasanna atma na sochati na kangshati sama sarveshu bhuteshu mat bhaktim labade param. One translation, one who is thus transcendently situated realizes the Supreme Brahman and becomes fully joyful. He never laments or desires to have anything. He is equally disposed to every living entity. In that state, he attains the pure devotional service unto me. Devotional service is actual liberation. When one is attracted to the beauty of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his mind is always engaged at the Lord's lotus feet, he is no longer interested in subjects that do not help him in self-realization. In other words, he loses all attraction for material activities. In the Taittiriya Upanishad 2.7, it is said, Esha hi eva nandayati yada hi evaisha etasmin na drishye natmai anirukte nilayane bhayan pratistham vindate thaso bhayam gato bhavati. A living entity becomes established in spiritual blissful life when he fully understands that his happiness depends on his spiritual self-realization, which is the basic principle of ananda, bliss. And when he is eternally situated in the service of the Lord, who has no other Lord above him. Om Jnanati Mirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Śrīmate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Desa Tarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So at the moment, we'll just see how this verse fits into the current episode. At the moment, Sukadeva Goswami is telling Parikshit Maharaj about the structure of the Bhumandala. And for the last few months, we have been seeing Sukadeva Goswami explaining to Parikshit Maharaj that the Bhumandala has got 7 islands. And one of the 7 islands is called Jambudvipa. And that is what we are reading, the island of Jambudvipa at the moment. So there are 7 islands, and within that 7, in one of the 7 islands is called Jambudvipa. In Jambudvipa there are 9 varshas or 9 divisions of land. One of that division of land is Bharat Varsha. So presently we are talking about Bharat Varsha. So in each of those varshas, in each of those divisions of land, the 9 of them, there are 9 presiding deities and there are 9 key inhabitants. So each of those key inhabitants have been offering prayers to the presiding deity of that particular island. At the moment, until text number 14 or 15ish, we saw various prayers concluding. The 9th prayer and the final prayer also concluded. The 9th prayer was offered by Narad Muni to the presiding deity of that particular Varsha, and that was Nar-Narayan Rishi. So that concluded at text number 15. So today we are at text number 20. So if given that the 9 prayers got concluded, then what has happened from text number 16 to 20? Let's quickly recap. That sets the scene, and then we'll zoom into the today's purport that Prabhupada writes. So after explaining the 9 prayers by the 9 key inhabitants of those 9 particular islands, in 16, Sukadeva Goswami continued to describe little bit more the structural formation of the Jambudvipa. So here he said in text number 16, he said that there are various mountains in this particular Varsha, such as the Mahindra mountain that is famous in the Ramayana pastime, then the Govardhan hill that is famous of course for us. And then in 17 and 18, after describing the mountains in 16, in 17 and 18 he described the various rivers. Why? Because rivers have their source in the mountains, when the mountains give birth to rivers. So he described various rivers such as Mada, Yamuna, Kaveri, then Godavari, and all those rivers that he mentioned in text number 17 and 18. Then in 19 he mentions, and this is when we start thinking about the today's context, in 19 he mentions about the various inhabitants of that Varsha. And then he mentions that the inhabitants of that Varsha, which is by the way us, welcome to us, he mentions that they take birth in that particular Varsha according to their past karma. And according to their karma subsequent to their birth will determine their destination, which can be hellish planets, or which can be human, or which can be heavenly planets. So we can go up and down like that merry-go-around, sometimes going up, sometimes coming down. Brahma Bhuvana Loka, like that. So we go up and down. Then the natural question that comes out of that is, well, if we are continuously going up and down in the cycle of going to upper planets, going to lower planets, and then being trapped here, then what is the way out? What is the form of liberation for the inhabitants of that Varsha? So then in response to that question, text number 20 is what we read today, and I'll read the translation again because then you can see the thread. What is text number 20 saying? So very quickly, 16 described the mountain, 17 was about the rivers, 18 is about the inhabitants taking birth according to their karma, and then 17 and 18 was rivers, 19 was inhabitants, 20 is about the liberation of these inhabitants in the Varsha. So what is the form of liberation? We'll read the translation again. After many, many births. Remember this, what does this strike when we say after many, many births? What verse comes to mind from Bhagavad Gita? bahunam janmanamante jnanavamam prapadyate vasudeva sarvamiti sa mahatmasu durlava. So after many, many births, so this is the inhabitants of this Varsha. Yeah? After many, many births, when the results of one's pious activities, and remember this, when the results of one's pious activities, the punya or the agyat sukriti, and we'll talk mainly about this today, yeah? The piety and the agyat sukriti. When one's pious activities mature, one gets the opportunity to associate with pure devotees. So what happens after agyat sukriti? We get association of the pure devotees. Right? And then once we get association of the pure devotees, then what happens? Then one is able to cut the knot of the bondage to ignorance which bound him because of varied fruitive activities. Those karma that was binding him is now cut in the association of the pure devotees. Then what happens? As a result of associating with such pure devotees, one gradually renders service to the Lord Vasudeva. So firstly there is Shraddha, then Sadhu Sangha, then Bhajan Kriya. So when Sadhu Sangha happens, then Bhajan Kriya will happen, and then Anartha Nivritti, and then so on, right? Who is transcendental, free from attachment to the material world, beyond the mind and words, and independent of everything else. That yoga, that bhakti yoga, devotional service to Lord Vasudeva, is the real path of liberation. So there are paths of liberation for the inhabitants of this Varsha, but the real path of liberation is what? Bhakti yoga. And Prabhupada picks up exactly that. I'll read the first few sentences of Prabhupada's purports again. Prabhupada writes, so because the West is talking about liberation, Prabhupada writes, Brahman realization is the beginning of liberation. So Prabhupada talks about three types of liberation now, or three stages of liberation. First is Brahman realization, and Paramatma realization is still further advanced. Then Prabhupada uses this word towards the realm. Then Prabhupada says, but one achieves a real liberation. Prabhupada is so clear with these terminologies, yeah? The real liberation when he understands his position as an eternal servant of Supreme Personality of Godhead. Jivara Sarupar Hoy, Krishna Nitya Das. That is the Krishna Nitya Das. That is the real liberation, Prabhupada writes. So here we see the transition of the jiva, of the soul, from the piety to purity. Because Bhakti Yoga entails us being pure devotees for the pure Krishna, all attractive, all pure Krishna. So how do we journey from piety to purity is what I'm going to talk about, what I'm going to discuss today. And of course, needless to say that I'm nowhere close to being pure. But what Prabhupada has given us the path towards which we can at least hope to become pure one day, among this purificatory process of Bhakti Yoga. So of course I'm not pure, but I can talk about what I have heard and read in our wonderful scriptures. So let's start with piety. A lot of times piety gets confused and misunderstood with purity. And it also gets extended and misunderstood with spirituality. So piety, purity and spirituality are three different things. Let's understand them before we understand how we can attain purity. So what is piety? Before we can understand what is piety, let's understand what is impiety, because that's pretty easy. We are probably more familiar with impiety. Impiety definitely has got its gross as well as its subtle aspect. The demoniac characterize the impiety. That is pretty clear, such as meat eating, intoxication, illicit sex, gambling, killing others, terrorism. These are all gross symptoms of being impious. So when we talk about pious people, we are talking about those who at least are not partaking in the gross demoniac activities, such as terrorism and all those things, yeah? Or killing people, killing animals and all those things. Those grossly miscreants, those are at least not there in these pious people. So they are at least pious. So therefore, they will be generally situated in the mode of goodness. Maybe that's another way to remember it. They won't be so much into mode of ignorance. They may be in passion, but more so towards the mode of goodness. Not Suddha Sattva, but the material mode of goodness they will be situated. Nice, bhajans they will be hearing. They will be doing, possibly waking up early in the morning, eating sattvic food, if not prasadam, at least they will be eating sattvic food. So these are the people who we are called pious. Because remember, this is important. Krishna has said, that if we are unable to complete our bhakti in one lifetime, then if we are not able to finish that off, then we take birth in the pious family, or in the family of rich mercantile, or in the family of transcendentalist. Suchi Nam Shri Matam and Dhi Matam, chapter Don't know. Huh? Six of Bhagavad Gita? Yes, 6 only, Ashtanga Yoga, yeah? So Suchinam, Shrimatam and Dhimatam. Suchinam is this pious family that the Lord is talking about. Shrimatam are the rich family, and then Dhimatam are the transcendental devotees where we can take birth. So if we are unable to finish this, we may take birth in one of these families. So that means the pious family, where it is very conducive for us to restart our Krishna consciousness from the point we left in our last life. So that is the pious family. But the problem, or let's say the limitation in the piety or in the pious family will be that they may have subtle form of bad activities, such as looking forward for pratishtha, puja and pratishtha, power and prestige in the society that we want. This is what the inhibits are of the pious family. So for example, a pious family may be very philanthropic. They will do a lot of charitable donations and all those things. And we see this in India. If they donate a bus shelter so that the children are protected before going to school if there is rain or heat, then the bus shelter should at least have their name on the board in the front. Established or constructed in 1988. By some Suresh Chauhan and family. No offense to Suresh Chauhan family, just a name that came to my mind randomly. By Chauhan brothers or something, it will must say. So this is a subtle form of looking for that prestige in the society, that I'm so giving, that my name should be glorified. So they are pious family, but that subtle self-centeredness is there. That's different from our spiritual progress when we try to not to harbor any of this kind of subtle anarthas as well. So that's piety family, this piety. Now what is purity? So if we contrast piety with purity, purity in simple words will be decreasing our attraction to anything that is impure. Purity in a simple words is decreasing our attachment and attraction to the point of zero to those things that are impure, materially speaking, impure. Now that is half of the definition then, because if somebody is able to achieve this, complete nullification of everything that is materially attractive, those material attractions, if we can make it to zero, then that is doesn't mean we are spiritual anymore, correct? Okay, that means we are just probably like, let's say like Buddhist, who aspire for nirvana, or like the impersonalist, Brahmavadis, because for them material attraction is also becomes zero to the point in time. Well, that's not a pure devotional service here. So for us, there's two limbs of purity definition. First is a reduction to the point of zero of anything that is impure, to be able to be become purity. And the second aspect, which is more important for us, is constant increasing of anything that is purely spiritual, to the point of 100% concentration on the all pure Krishna. Constant, regular decreasing of anything that is impure, and then constant increasing to everything that is pure, to the point of ultimate condensed concentration on the all pure Krishna. That is purity. When we say pure devotees, we mean to say that the only thought in their mind is about the all pure Krishna, nothing else. That is a definition of a pure devotee. So even if they are utilizing the metta, even in the metta they see Krishna. They spiritualize whatever is material. So that's the definition of purity. So on the same note, then impurity will be that thing that takes us away from the Lord. Impurity in a simple word would be the jiva trying to enjoy in separation to Krishna. The jiva trying to enjoy impure things in separation to the pure Krishna. That will be a definition of impurity. Yeah. So clear so far? Piety and impurity, what is and piety and purity, where do we draw the mark? Now then it takes us to the next question is, well, what is so bad about being impure? What is the problem with somebody who is impure? When we sit at home and continuously on the chair, working from home and not coming to the temple for Bhagavatam classes and hearing and all that, and not sitting in kirtan and all that, all of a sudden it's just so difficult, to be honest, to be sitting in this asana. My God, I'm feeling it. So anyway, what was I saying? So what is the problem with being impure? The problem with being impure is that almost against our will, it drags us to our deadly downfall, destruction. Just as, now I'll give you an analogy and I'll come back to this point. A butcherman, he drags the animal towards the chamber, the slaughterhouse, to chop his neck off, so forcefully against the will of the animal. He drags him. That is being dragged against his will. So those impure thoughts in our mind, what they do, they drag us towards our death, towards our downfall, towards our destruction, almost like almost like against our will, our pure will. Now, how does the butcherman drag the animal? The butcherman puts the rope around the animal's neck and drags the animal with the power. If the animal is very powerful, then the rope has to be very powerful as well. Rope has to be strong, and the person who is pulling the rope and the animal has to be powerful as well. Now, in our case, when I say our case, I probably meant to say in my case, neither the rope nor the pull has to be very strong. A lot of times, a very small amount of impure thoughts can pull us. I don't know whether you have this realization or not, but I have, a subtle, very, very, very subtle impure pull, impure thought, very subtly and very less forcefully can pull us towards our downfall. And by the way, we can be bound by 3 ropes. The animal is bound by 1 rope generally. We are bound by 3 ropes, which is Satogun, Rajogun and Tamogun, mode of goodness, passion and ignorance. All those 3 ropes are pulling us. Sometimes the one guna is more predominant than the other, and it just keeps pulling us towards our downfall. And if we are not careful and vigilant, then one of those ropes, even with a small pull, can pull us down completely. That is the force of Maya. And then after we get pulled, then we realize that, oh my God, what did I do? Ajamila went through this, exactly the same pull. Just a small sight of, a man and a woman embracing each other illicitly in public, although he was such a nice cultured Brahmana, just that small sight tantalized his senses, and then before he he is fallen all the way down. For us, it could be a billboard on the road. It could be something on the tram that we are seeing that's obnoxious. It could be something that pops up on our smartphone. We are watching nice kirtan, and something pops up to say, get attracted to this. Before we know, we have started watching some show or some movie or something, completely distracted without much endeavor at all. And so this is the problem with impure thoughts. It can just pull us and pull us down so hard. So with that, then Prabhupada quotes this verse in text number 20, which was, just bear with me. Brahma bhuta prasannatma na sochati na kankshati sama sarveshu bhuteshu mad bhaktim labhate param. Why does Prabhupada quote this verse? Because Prabhupada explains that for us to be progressing from impurity to purity, we have to come to a platform of Brahma bhuta. In other words, we have to come to the platform of spirituality. Because purity is almost like a byproduct of spirituality. When we become spiritual, as we are becoming spiritually advanced towards Krishna, then purification is a product that naturally comes out of it. Of course, we try to be pure to approach the Lord, and the output of that is also purity. So it goes hand in hand. Spirituality and purity goes hand in hand. So when we are at the Brahma Bhuta platform, at the spiritual platform, then fighting those impure, impious thoughts are very easy. For example, our body is a city of 9 gates. We know that. So if any material city is attacked by hooligans, or by the opposition army, and we see this literally happening in Kabul, in Afghanistan. We are all familiar with this news, I presume. So at there, what is happening? When the 2 army forces of the Taliban and of the allied forces dominated by US, when they are fighting, if both of the forces are at the ground level at the airport, then it is quite difficult for one force to overtake the other, because they are at the same level. But what they do, what the army contingents do, if they are unable to sustain the attack of the other force when both are at the same level, one tries to rise. When one tries to rise to the higher grounds, such as to the hills or the mountains, or definitely the air forces, when they take air forces as the wave of their raiding, then it gives them much more power all of a sudden to attack the lava forces. So the force itself may not have changed, but the strength of the force itself may not have changed, but just the slight difference in the strategy of elevating themselves to the higher platform immediately makes them more powerful, and then they are able to withstand and counter the force that is at the ground level. Similarly, Brahma Bhuta Prasanna Atma means that if we are, given that we always struggle to fight with our impious, impure thoughts coming in our mind, like incessant flow of water into the ocean, then if we just raise our consciousness to a higher platform, then from there onwards, fighting these lower modes of thoughts will become more and more easier. And definitely we have this realization in our Krishna consciousness path, that when we become, when we come to the temple, when we associate with devotees, when we read Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, when we eat prasadam, when we sing kirtan, and all those things makes it much more easier to fight the impious, impure thoughts. But doing it on our own, and personally speaking, in lockdown, I find it quite challenging now. The thoughts that come in my mind, and I had this bad experience recently as well, a slight provocation of anger, I reacted so gravely against somebody that I'm sure that I would have not done that in my pre-COVID days. When you constantly come to the temple, take darshan of the Lord, associate with devotees, I think, I'm having that realization now that it had set me so well that, of course, I won't say that I was never getting angry, but definitely, the extent to which I would retaliate would have been much, much more sober and controlled. But in the past 4-5 weeks, when I was challenged with this situation, I completely regret the way I reacted. And then I was just checking myself that why did I react like this? Reacting in anger is definitely undevotee-like, non-devotee-like, but reacting so badly is definitely, not almost, it is actually demoniac. So why did I fall for this trap? So I was checking my own self. Then I realized that, oh my God, how much I'm missing the congregational get-together, and that empowerment and enrichment that is there in devotee association is just invaluable, to be honest. And as a grihastha, I can see that when I don't have access to the temple as much as I definitely had before. So then I started, when I was faced with this, that raise our consciousness to fight these thoughts that come in our mind, then I thought, okay, what is the plan? What plan can I have that I can not just have a theoretical plan, for writing it in an exam or something, but what do I practically have as a checkpoint next time when I'm challenged with the same situation? Because it is said, what is the definition of stupidity? Stupidity is to expect the different outcome when you do the same thing second time. If you keep doing the same thing second time, the same outcome will happen, but a stupid person thinks that the outcome may be different. So then I don't want to be like that. I want to be somebody at least who can know that I will react differently when I'm challenged with the same situation again. So I did some more research, and I found this in one of the articles that I was reading from Chaitanya Charan Prabhu, so all credits to him. And he said, to fight this, you could have a plan of different words starting with letter, such as fear. You fear it, you find it, you fight it, and then you finish it. And I'll explain all of this, yeah. You fear it, you find it, you fight it, and then you finish it. So there is 4 letters with letter F, yeah. So you fear it. Firstly, you have to fear that the impure thoughts are disastrous to us. Firstly, we have to fear it, because if somebody doesn't fear it, there are people who actually like to be angry, because it makes them think that they are more powerful and predominating the others. And we see this, sometimes in the bosses, the leaders, in the managers, they want to be very powerful. So they like to be angry always. In the morning, if you say, good morning, sir, it's like, good morning, That's how they will react, with little bit of grumpiness in their sound. They enjoy it. People are like that. But for devotees, we have to fear it, that these things will firstly lead to our downfall before we can think about anybody else. So these anarthas, we have to fear it. Once we fear it, then Chaitanya Charan Prabhu said that you find it. And where do you find them? Krishna tells in Bhagavad Gita that Indriyani Mano Buddhir. Lust resides in mind, senses, and intelligence. Indriyani Mano Buddhir. You know it is there. But just knowing that is there, if you find it, that the senses and the mind and the intelligence are the harbor of these bad thoughts, is not enough, because for our own personal plan, and this is when it became important for me, and I hope it can be a takeaway for you as well. Our personal plan has to be that Okay, we know theoretically it is there, but what is that particular impure thought that is bothering me the most? Is it anger? Is it lust? Is it prestige? Or is it power? Or is it fame? What is that that's bothering? I know most of the times most of these things will be bothering us to some extent or the other. But what is the one that is the most bothering factor in my own sadhana? So I have to fear it and find it specifically in our case. What is that I'm going to work on the most in the next few days? And especially for us, tomorrow is Janmashtami. So which is that particular thought that is, I'm going to work on tomorrow and have a personal subplane from there. So fear it and then find it, and then fight it. And Chaitanya Prabhu said that if we don't fight it, let me rephrase. What he said is, if we fight it, we may not necessarily be winning the war. This got me tricked again. He said, if we fight it, that does not mean that we are going to win against that force of Maya. But if we don't fight it, then we are guaranteed to lose. Interesting, yeah? If we fight, we may not be winning we may not be winning momentarily, but eventually we will, hopefully, by Krishna's mercy. But if we don't, then we are guaranteed to lose. So better to fight and perhaps lose time to time and then keep fighting rather than throwing the towel and not being able to march forward towards the all-powerful pure Krishna at all. Yeah? So we have to fight it. And then once we have fought it enough, eventually with our endeavor and topped with it Krishna's mercy, we will eventually finish it off. A day will come when all these anarthas will eventually finish, and then we will become all pure devotees. So find it, fear it, find it, fight it, and then finish it off. And Prabhupada said, finish it off in one lifetime. Finish it off in one lifetime, which is quite interesting, because actually when you look at the verses from tomorrow, from tomorrow onwards, for the next 5 or 6 verses, what continues, so after the 9 prayers have been finished, and the structural definition of, description of the Varsha is given in terms of the mountain, rivers and the inhabitants, and what is the solution for the liberation of the inhabitants, which is what we are talking today. The next 9 or 10 verses is about the demigods glorifying this particular Varsha. The demigods glorifying this particular piece of land, Bharat Varsha. Why? And the demigods are saying, they start talking about their time duration, literally, to say, we live for 1 kalpa of Brahma. Now, what is 1 kalpa of Brahma? 1 kalpa of Brahma is 1 day of Brahma. That is equal to 1 Chatur Yuga, which is the 4.3 million of our Chatur Yuga multiplied by 1000. We know that, Treta Yuga goes for 432,000 years. Multiply that by 2 becomes Treta Yuga, Dwapar Yuga, and then you triple the Kali Yuga, which is 400 times 3, 1.2 million years is Dwapar Yuga. In 432, Kali Yuga multiplied by 4 is 1.6, 1.7 millions of Satya Yuga. So you add all this together, the 4 million plus the 400,000, the 800,000, the 1200,000, and then the 1600,000 becomes 4.3 million years of years. And those 4.3 million years is called 1 Chatur Yuga or 1 Divya Yuga. So 4.3 million years multiplied by 1000 becomes 1 day of Brahma, and that is 1 kalpa of Brahma, we say. So the demigods are saying in the next few verses that we live for 1 kalpa of Brahma, because after that they undergo through the process of the partial annihilation. So they're saying we live for so many years, and look at these inhabitants in Bharat Varsha, they live only for 100 years maximum, if they are lucky. And they can get liberation, they can get bhakti and become all pure and go back to Godhead in such a short span of time. What is the point in our lifetime when we could easily become, human beings and get liberated? So they are glorifying the inhabitants of the Bharat Varsha, as well as the purificatory process that is in Bharat Varsha for them to become all pure, to reach the all pure, for them to become pure devotees. So they want to take birth as human beings. This will be the katha for the next week or so about the demigods praying. So on that note, tomorrow is Krishna Janmashtami. All of us want to become pure devotees of the Lord. I think all of us probably will agree as well to become pure devotees by tomorrow. Might be quite challenging, because we have tried this for the last 10 years. And definitely we have advanced, but we have not possibly reached the point of 100% yet. But a journey of 1,000 steps starts with the fast, and tomorrow we can take that one big step on Janmashtami Day to beg the Supreme Personality of Godhead, our beloved Krishna, that tomorrow is, tomorrow being his appearance there, when he is more merciful, beg for his blessings so that he can shower that onto us, and we can march closer and closer to him. So the Lord is not necessarily seeing whether we are all pure or not at the moment. What he is seeing in us, in me, is that whether we are actually even endeavoring to become sincere and pure. If that sincere endeavor is there, then he can do magic in our life. So we have to become sincere in trying to become all pure. And then the Lord will reciprocate to us this. Because tomorrow is Paritranaya Sadhunam, Vinashaya Cha Duskritam, Dharma Samsthapanarthaya Sambhavami Yuge Yuge. The Lord appears for 3 reasons. Paritranaya Sadhunam and Vinashaya Cha Duskritam. So we can think of this Vinashaya Cha Duskritam. Oh my Lord, please kill all these impure, impious thoughts in my mind. Kill this demoniac mentality in my mind. And that is exactly why you appear, one of the reasons. And please save me, Paritranaya Sadhunam. I beg to you on this auspicious day, please save me so that we can become all pure. And Prabhupada said that purity is the force. So if we can endeavor to become pure, then with that pure force we can not only save ourselves, but we can also save others, especially on days like tomorrow. We can go and preach. But our preaching can only be effective if we have that kind of purity in us. Otherwise we can preach, but the transformation in the heart of the other person will not happen so much unless we preach with force, or preach with purity. That is the force. Okay, so I will park it here. It's Janmashtami, so I know there is a lot of other services going on. I'll stop at 8:30 today. If you have any comments, questions, or corrections, then please, you've got a few minutes. Just maybe the mic, Mataji. Yeah?
Prayer, Namo, Namo Bhagavate Narsimhaya. Please kill the demonic mentality from the heart.
Yeah, very nice. Yeah, and that's probably another good thing to do tomorrow. Recall all these nice verses that talks about purity. So from piety is good, but purity is required to boost the piety so that we can become spiritual. Anything else? Just Mataji with the mic. Yeah.
It's in regards to the concept of purity. As you said, it's more trying to avoid the impure things. So I was trying to analyze what actually means be impure or clean. Based on Prabhupada's purpose, for example, it's clear to find that the sense of trying to enjoy the nature and be the controller, and self-centered tendency, it's the impurity. And when, as you properly mentioned, if we focus more in Krishna's pleasure, trying to orient our activities, how to satisfy Krishna, less self-centered, purity is manifested.
Correct.
And so avoiding or eradicating the tendency of being the enjoyer and controller.
Yes.
And also that can be applied in our perception in relationship with others as well.
Yeah. Correct. A very, very good point actually. Trying to enjoy separately from Krishna, and when we know that when we try to enjoy separately from Krishna, then neither the enjoyment comes, but in return what we get is more miseries. And then the second point you made is, our dealings and our engagements and our relationship with others also may not be best because we are self-centered rather than Krishna-centered. And actually, if we explode that verse, Prabhupada that goes, Brahma bhuta prasannatma na shoshati na kangshati sama sarveshu bhuteshu mad bhaktim labate param. Then what does that mean? That Brahma bhuta prasannatma, that Atma who is situated in the spiritual platform, Brahma Bhuta, now sochati na kangshati. So he doesn't have any soch nor any kangshati. In other words, he doesn't have any lamentation, nor he has any hankering or craving. So he is satisfied with what he has got. So not that, oh, I don't have this and he has it, so I'm envious. I don't have this, why am I not getting this? God doesn't exist, so he's jealous towards the Lord. So all those, lamentations and all those cravings are there continuously. Lamentation for what we have lost, our near and dear ones, our possessions, and cravings for what we want in the future. We want to accumulate more and more and more. But for this person who is on a Brahma Bhuta platform, na sochati na kankshati. No lamentation, no hankerings, no craving. And in terms of his dealings with others, sama sarveshu bhuteshu. Of all living entities, he sees them equally, as children of God and the Paramatma residing in them heart. So when he sees them, everything as spiritual oriented, then again there is no tension in relationships. So with people, he is equal. With things, he is neither lamenting nor hankering. So very, very equipoised, meditating on the Lord's Vasudeva form. Vasudeva Sarvamiti Sa Mahatmasu Durlabha. Such a soul is very rare. Thank you. Very nice points actually.
If you allow me, another point that I wanted to ask is related. Well, first of all, thank you so much for the class and also sharing that technique that Chaitanya Charan Prabhu presented about the fear, finding, fighting, and finish off.
Yeah.
I wonder if that can be applied to different, not just to fear, but of different others favorable bad tendencies that we have.
Yeah.
And if that finding process can be more related to the self-introspection,
Yeah.
But also because our tendency of deceiving ourselves can be complemented with, for example, input of feedback from others, asking from feedback.
Yeah.
That finding can be in that way,
Ah,
or what is?
100%. 100%. The finding can be personal, our time to sit down and meditate on what's wrong with me, and especially in devotee association, finding internal introspection is important because devotees generally tend to glorify us much more than what we are worth it. Oh, Prabhuji, such a nice prasadam, such a nice lecture, such a nice kirtan. Devotees like to glorify other devotees, and that is good. But if you want to be a little sincere and serious, then self-introspection and then cross-checking with those that we trust, like our mentors, our Guru Maharajas, our senior devotees, to say, this happened and why is this happening, can you direct me? So, both, finding it can be many ways. Sometimes when we read Prabhupada's purports, we find it, that, oh my God, this is my life story. It's talking about me only, If you read a lifetime, it's like, it's like me. Why is this happening to me? So then within that purport, there could be answers that tells us why we are so, and what's the solution. In almost every purport, Prabhupada gives the solution, some or the other. So all those things we can be implemented, and that will eventually help us march forward. Premataji?
Prabhu, the word finish it, that is like with question mark.
Yes.
You can find it, you can fear, find, and fight it as well, I guess. Fighting is more like addressing it and how to overcome it or whatever it may be. But there are different urges of the body and mind, and these are, if you can overcome these urges, then you're, Rupa Goswami says you can make disciples all over the world. So, the word finish it for me is like, how does that work?
I had the same thoughts when I read it. Fear it, find it, and fight it. I could say, okay, I can try. Finish it, I know, and that's when I said, So I think the fear it, find it, and fight it is our endeavor. I would, in my personal plane, I would have it as my endeavor, and finish it, I will leave it to the Lord. To say, I need your help. I can't do it alone. But if I do 3, at least you do 1, right? that is your reciprocation to me. So finishing is, I agree, it's hard, but it's not impossible. We know through our shastras it's not impossible. So I think if you can, as Prabhupada said, you get to 70-80%, and I'll take care of the rest of it through the back door. So thank God we have got the back door policy as well. Prabhupada will take us some or the other, even if it's not finished. But he's also said finish it in this lifetime. So with that 80% endeavor from us, and then 20% mercy from Prabhupada and Krishna, then we'll finish it.
And
correct. And another thing was that I was thinking, so this is again my personal plan. There's a saying that if you aim for the bullseye, and if you miss it, you'll at least hit the target. But if you aim for the target, you might hit outside the circle, yeah? So at least aim for the target, finish it. And if you don't, then maybe we are somewhere within the circle of Krishna consciousness. So that could be, it's always good to aim for high.
And also finish it can also mean more like dovetailing those urges or tendencies. That's more, not finish it, okay, done,
Agree.
close.
Agree.
But
It's a good point because doesn't mean everything is coming from Krishna. So it's just utilizing in Krishna service, the best use of everything. That's
Yeah. Dovetail all our senses to Krishna. And especially tomorrow again. Nice day to reset. I think nice if we have discussed so much about that plan. I think literally put it, into some kind of writing, and tomorrow offer it to the Lord to say, this is my personal plan, and I can work on the 3, and please help me with the 4th one, and come back to Him, in 1 year's time, to say, how did I go, and then take it from there, something like that, something more practical. Okay, anything else? No? Thank you so much for those participation that made it more lively. Thank you. Śrīmad Bhāgavatam ki jai, Śrīla Prabhupada ki jai.